Good evening and welcome to the January 16th, 2024 Akron Public Schools Instructional Policy and Student Achievement Committee meeting. Thank you for all of those tuning in. Thank you for those here at the meeting, and we will jump right into our agenda. Item 1.01. These are our minutes from the last meeting. And is there any additions, corrections at all to these meeting minutes from October 30th? Seeing none, we will keep it moving on to item 2.01 under our discussion topics, consent agenda. Dr. Kaver.
Thank you, Ms. Autry, President Autry. All right, so we have a few items that I just want to bring to the board's attention. These items will be on the consent agenda for Monday, January 22nd, and they are items 19.2. It's an early childhood education fund, appropriation modification. So we are receiving an additional approximately $106,000 for our early childhood program, and so we are just accepting those funds. That will give us, I believe, an additional 20 to 25 slots. Another item that you will see is our Martha Holding Jennings Foundation grant for CCAA. It's item 19.3. Just want to bring that to your attention as well. We received a grant, a multi-year grant from Martha Holding Jennings Foundation. And so it's just the information on there that this is our last year of the grant. And so this is the last portion of that 5-year, and we're just accepting those funds and telling you all exactly how we're using those. Again, it's for middle school. It was for the middle school rollout of the college and career academies. Both of those items will be on the agenda. And so speaking of college and career academies, today I have guests with us to speak about 2 items. So item 2.02 is looking at, first we are going to hear from Marcy E. Bright, the Director of College and Career Academies. And we are going to talk about the report card first. Report card. Okay. All right, I'm going to turn it over to Marcy at this time.
Thank you. Thank you very much. I have with me Miss Mary Otley is going to be presenting with me when we speak to the elementary addendum part of our College and Career Academies. So you get a twofer tonight. You get 2 College and Career Academy presentations. But we really wanted to start with celebrations around report cards. And also with me is Miss Beth Winter, is our coordinator of partner engagement. So all those things that we move kids out into the community and all the partner engagements that we do falls under her purview with the coaches and all of that work. And Mr. Nate Rurian is our coordinator for CTE education. So make sure that all of our teachers in our classrooms have all the things that they need to do the instruction pieces. So I wanted to spend a little bit of time tonight to sort of celebrate. We always talk about our ODE report card. At the same time that is released from the Department of Education, we also receive our CTPD report card because we are a career technical planning district. Lets us know how we're doing against those measures that have always been important but are becoming more and more important. How are students really prepared for life beyond high school? So as a career technical planning district, we have state and federal accountability. This helps us strengthen those connections between our secondary and post-secondary education. It improves academic performance. And the accountability measures that I'm going to show you tonight can be from different classes or groups of students, but this would be from mostly the graduating class of 2023, and then graduation report card measures that are included in here also come from the class of 2022. This includes concentrators and non-concentrators. So I knew that was going to come up. Concentrators are those students who have completed CTE coursework, at least 2 courses, and have received credit. So every year our concentrator number goes up as the number of students are getting those successfully completed college and career academy courses while in high school. And I think we graduated, our cohort was 1,064 out of the graduating class of about 1,300 students. We would have non-concentrators because we may have students who are doing only CCP courses, and so there's no room in their schedule for the CCA courses. We might have students who are doing transition to work programs. So those are the kids who are learning job skills and not necessarily in a pathway. We still count them in a pathway. They're still part of college and career academies, but the state doesn't count them as a concentrator. And we may have students that come back to us in their senior or junior year that don't have time to get through all the courses in the CT pathway. So, but they're still in our graduation denominator as a non-concentrator.
So do the concentrators, they've completed the 2 courses, but did they get the credential as well?
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, right. So those are the students, right? All those students, when we say wall-to-wall college and career academies, all of the students completing the coursework in their CT classes, right? So they become concentrators once they earn 2 full credits. So our state reporting this year changed to stars, so we're now in alignment with the other state report card. Previously, it was an A through F scale. We get rated on things like how well are we graduating our concentrators, how well are they achieving on state tests and CTE assessments, how well are they prepared for life after high school, and where are they after high school, and are they in enlistment, enrollment, or employment. Each of those 4 components are weighted equally at 25%, and we get a star on each one, with 1 being significant improvement needed, up to 5 meaning significantly exceeds state measures. I think you'll be really happy to see we have no 1s. And we're sliding into 4s on lots of things, and really close to 5. So we're going to go through each of those measures so you can see how we're performing. So let's start with graduation. So our overall, now these are for the concentrators in that group of the most recent graduates. We have a 4-year graduation rate of 90.6%. As you may recall, our most recent overall graduation rate across the district was 86.1. So we exceed, which makes sense because a lot of these students you would say are more stable. They're more, if they've completed and become a concentrator, we've kept them here in-house with us, and we know that when we keep students here with us that they graduate more on time. So we have our overall graduation rate there for that cohort was 85.6, and then our 5-year graduation rate with this cohort of kids jumps up to 95%. So those are how our concentrators are performing at this time. We believe we're going to hit a goal of 93% this year and 96% for our 5-year. And if we do, that's going to boost us up to a 5-star rating on our graduation rate, so exceedingly above state standards. Currently, we're at a 4-star, which is still pretty good. In our achievement, we're currently at 2 stars. Our technical skill attainment, these are the tests that students take at the end, their end of course tests, like they take for each one of their courses that they take in CTE. And we are at a 62.3% on that passage rate, but a very high participation rate of 98.6%. Our concentrators on their performance index scores, on any of our concentrators and any tests that they took, such as their ELA, biology, and math tests. We also get a weighted percentage of this. It's 80% technical skill attainment, 20% performance index to get this score. We improved on our technical skill attainment 6.6 5 percentage points from last year. Our goal this year is 70%, and we improved slightly on our PI to 55.5%. And if we hit those 2 markers this year, we were really close to 3 stars with the scores that we had. But if we hit those 2 markers this year, that'll put us firmly in 3 stars on achievement for our concentrators. For career and post-secondary readiness, there's that cohort. There were 1,167 students in this. We earned 987.4 points. There's a variety of ways in which we earn these points. It could be from how many types of industry credentials they earned, on their CTE technical assessments, how many of them did their Ohio Means jobs, all those different types of things. You earn points for those. Overall, we were 4 stars. Again, on this is how the state is saying that we are exceeding measures to prepare students for their post-secondary experiences. This was a 16.2% jump from the previous year, and we believe that our goal this year, if we hit 88.5%, to maintain that 4 stars as we move forward. And this is sort of a little breakdown of all the different ways and the measures of how we saw those gains go across the board. We expect even more gains because of the investment that this board made in work-based learning. Those dollars aren't reflected here yet because that's a number that lags behind. So we'll see those reflected in next year's post-secondary readiness for how many students were able to take advantage of that, which has been wildly successful. Previous summer, we only had about 30 students take or finish all the way through their hours. This past summer, we had 370. So we'll see all those points reflected, in addition to all the work-based learning that is currently taking place in all of our schools and opportunities that students are having. So we expect to exceed the measure that we've set for ourselves and still maintain that 4-star rating. And this is reports only. We do not get measured in our report card, but it does let us know how many of our concentrators entered college within 2 years, and then how many of them have finished within 6 years of leaving school. And our final measure is post-program placement. Again, we get a report only on our industry credentials here, but here's what I really like about this data is we had to follow up with every student who was in that graduation cohort, plus some. There were about 1,600 students that we called, texted, traced down through family members, that we were required to find out where they were 6 months after graduation. We were able to find 92.7% of them, which was a monumental effort because they give us the file. Mr. Rurian and his team about, 8 weeks to do all that work. We get the file from the state, and then they activate all of their systems and processes to find where those students are so we can submit the data in time. And so we were able to find that many. And then of those, 86% reported that they are employed, enlisted, or enrolled someplace. So that gives us a lot of data. It also breaks it down by what sort of industry they're working in, and gives us data to work with the city around what could we do for those students who are reporting that they're not working on one of their E's yet. So it's really been helpful. We just most recently finished our post-program placement outcomes for this class, and we did hit 95% of a status known rates, and we're working on how all those numbers are breaking down, but that data has been submitted. So we believe we've hit those goals here that we've already set for this one to move us from 3 stars to 4 stars. Oops. So given all of those things, you take those 4 measures that I just went over with you. We earned 3.5 stars, which means we meet state standards, sliding into exceeding state standards. And if we hit all the goals that I just showed you on the previous screen, we will be a 4-star career planning district for next year. So the teachers and the students are working hard. We've implemented a lot of strategies with your support to make sure that we're preparing them for all of those items and their achievement and graduation and all those successes that we're looking for. Finally, on our federal report card, we met 5 out of the 9 federal indicators. Again, we know that the area of achievement was the area that we struggled with the most in our 4 areas. And you can see that, again, that those are some areas that we need to continue to focus on, but we did gain indicators this year. I think we had 4, we went up to 5. We're looking to meet 6 or more so that we jump to 66%. And again, we believe with that work-based learning indicator, that's going to help move that piece up because it did not reflect in this federal indicator yet. I'm going to go ahead and stop there. Do you have any questions? Yes, ma'am.
Could you go back to the slide that has the federal indicators?
Yep.
Okay. It shows our the post-secondary placement as being a high. That's like 86%. Which would be like a B+ average. But then when you look at academic proficiencies in the math and the science and language arts, which typically is an indicator to be accepted into a post-secondary institution, it does not align. So I'm just curious on this data because how could the post-secondary placement be so high but yet the efficiency in areas that are required for college admittance so low?
And post-secondary placement can include students that reported that they're actively working. It can include if they're in the military, and it can include if they're in a 2-year or a 4-year or an apprenticeship program. So any sort of other types of alternate. So it's we could break down and show exactly where they reported that they were at.
Yeah, that was my next. That was my follow-up question. Okay, I understand. That's clear. Because also, which you kind of went there, which was my next question, is the slide when you talk about the CTE certificates. The reason why we had the 16% jump in our rating, and that you had to track down like 92%. You track down those other students so that you can report that in the data?
This one? Are you speaking to this one?
Yes. Great. So my question with this one is when you find these students, and this is the information that I would like to see because I think it would be valuable. When we talk about the post-secondary placement, place where, what are they doing? How many of them with their CTE, with what they get trained for, are working in that field? And how many with partners? With partners that we collaborate with. So, for instance, certain programs that we have and that we partner with community businesses to do, how many of our students then begin to work for these companies? I think that would be good for us to see, to show that the credentials is even valid for them. Because if they get the credentials and then they're working at Arby's,
Yes. Right.
but they didn't get the, the prep, the safe serve, that wasn't their pathway or their credential, then, what are the steps we're taking to reaffirm, to connect with students?
We definitely saw that we needed work to do in the transition between high school and young adulthood, right? And that the question can also go to our employers. How many of our kids are you employing and recruiting and retaining and going after to get in your positions as well? So we get that question a lot. And sometimes it's an immediate outcome, and sometimes it's a longer-term outcome. We hear from a lot of students several years later that this is what they were trained in. This is what they know. They gravitate back to it because that's what they learned about, and it might not be in that 6-month snapshot right after high school graduation. It might have been a year or 2 or 3 where we start to see that tide switch. So we watch the labor markets and see where the impact is having that educations, because schools once spoke of it, right? It's a whole community effort to see how kids are getting involved as young adults in those aligned employment opportunities.
Okay, yeah, that sounds good. So, because I remember asking like questions along these lines like a year ago, and so I'm just wondering how soon could we get these documents produced? Additionally, the college and career academies have been in existence for how many years now?
Pilot year was 2016. Wall was 17, right? I'm doing the math. It's 2018 wall to wall.
Okay, so from 2018. So 6 years. So 6 years, perfect. So within 6 years, usually you can accumulate a certain data. Within 3 years, you can tell about the success of a program. So the reason why I'm asking that specific question is because now we should be able to have that data-driven decision-making as far as what is working well in what clusters, what pathways do students thrive in,
Absolutely.
and what clusters are they coming from, and where, to your point, are partners that are employing our students. And to the point of your earlier statement that you just made as far as when they're graduating, like the follow-up, that should be a metrics that we have in place as far as like when we have alumni associations or we reach back, when we're doing career academies, the follow-up in our network should be growing. And I would like to see, I shouldn't say should, I think as we evolve this, it should be a network that our students pull from. And I just want to know the action steps that happen with that, because we do have partnerships. They do have access to all these things, but the fruit, we're not seeing the fruit within our city and the community that mirrors the programming that we have. And I'm taking this from the lens because even with the scholarship opportunities that are missed from students, when I sit on committees, we just have to make sure that we're following through that it's accessible to our young people, even if they're 19, 20, and the turnaround, that they have a uplink, someone within the school system to say, hey, McKinley is hiring, whatever,
Right. Yeah,
So
we spoke a lot about the need for a more robust alumni system for students to be able to tap back into those resources as they come across us, because once they graduate and become young adults, there's this time that the transition would be beneficial to them to be able to tap.
And just even their email, if they're able to keep the email address in that, when companies are hiring, if I know that you graduated in this pathway, then your pathway, you get the emails for that pathway constantly. Scholarship opportunities, continuing education, that they get those, that they're able to hold on to that email address as access to opportunities, as they go along. This is things that I'm saying, like, to see how can it be implemented and applied, not just me talking here, like, to where the next time, sometime, when they meet, that we can have something tangible or accessible for these things, because it's great work that's happening, but
it's great. I think we're laying really great foundations, and now we can start to see that what does it take to get those next level pushed forward. This is year 6 of what was a 5-year rollout, so we're officially done with the 5-year master plan that's been fully implemented in 2.5 years now through the middle school, which I think is going to even reap a lot more benefits because students will be even better prepared as they head into high school. So all of it's just going to keep building that momentum and that growth. So, but absolutely, we need ways that we can make sure that students can connect continually to those resources and opportunities for them. Any other questions?
Dr. Molnar.
To build off of what Ms. Jackson said, I think keeping the email address, or even if there were something to keep the networks, keep the partners involved, even if there was a page that when you're a sophomore in the program, you are added to this page, and the company could even post to the page, hey, we're hiring one of these. So that way, as the students are in the program, they can see opportunities that are coming up and what that looks like. And if they have questions as students, they can ask the teacher, hey, I saw this job posted. Is this something that we're training for? Is this something that I might be eligible for? Is this the difference between getting this extra certificate or this extra training or not? And along with the data, something good to know, not just, and I think we'd get this if we had our data from our partners, but also I know that when this was originally introduced, people explained that the reason a lot of these pathways were chosen or determined was based upon the likelihood of the projection of high-paying jobs for our students here in Akron. So I think it'd be really good to know who's working specifically with our partners and who's working generally in Akron. At a lot of the student voice panels that I have visited, students were saying that they had peers that felt not very motivated because they did not envision a thriving future for themselves in Akron. And so when we look at that 6-year data and we see how the students are doing, how well are students doing that are here and that we're supporting there, and are these still what we projected to see in the future? Well, now the future is here, and does this need potentially reevaluated, and what's working? I think would be very, very useful data.
Yes.
But-
Thank you.
And then I did have one question too. On the CTE page, there was CTE and other variables. I think it's back, this one.
Oh, sorry. This one?
No. Forwards. So on this one, the technical skill attainment was our 2-star page. So then the one after this, we were up. Maybe it was 2 after this. No, this one. Yes, it was that one. Sorry. We were up. Back one. Sorry.
That's okay.
This one.
Okay.
And we're up to 4 stars, but the CTE technical assessments was still included in this measurement. So how were we able, or what was the difference that kind of boosted our CTE technical assessment score? What was the difference maker in this?
Do you want to speak to that, Nate? Put a lot. You can come on up here. Yeah. This is his world.
Hi. So the career and post-secondary readiness is a point system. So we earn points based on the student's achievement on the end of course assessment. So ultimately, the technical skill attainment was accurately reflected, but there are multiple metrics within career and post-secondary readiness that bumped us up. So if we go to that next slide, and we can send you a comprehensive list of those different metrics. So ultimately, it includes more than just the end of course assessment.
But is there, I guess, an example of something besides an end of course assessment? What is it that we're doing so well on that it boosted us 2 stars?
Definitely industry credentials. So, we're huge administrators and proponents of industry recognized credentials. And I believe it was over 60% of the graduating class earned at least one industry credential.
You can see we got on the bonus points too. So students doing multiple things in this list, you get bonus points. I know that print's really hard to see. But if you look on the left, the second one down, it's the number of bonus students that count as an additional 0.33 bonus because they did the above, which was one of the post-secondary preparedness pieces, and then they also did one item from the work-based learning list. So if we get bonus points for those, and because we've been putting efforts there, you see that showing up on the other side because we only earned 7 points the previous year, and we jumped to 78 bonus points this time. So all of those are increases from the left to the right on the points earned. It's a multi-page document that has all these different ways you can earn points, which makes sense because just showing my achievement on my ACT test is okay. We want to see those ACT scores hit the right scores, but kids can show readiness in multiple facets, and the states recognize that different ways that students can show readiness. So you get points straight on, 1 point for students, and then if they do something else, you get an extra bump. So because we're offering multiple ways and students are demonstrating multiple ways, we saw more points on the other side this year.
I love multifaceted assessments of student growth and learning because there's no one size fits all when we talk about achievement in academics. And so I think it's important that we rethink education in that way. So I love that we do the career pathways. My question is it possible for a student to obtain the maximum amount of CTE credentials and not graduate?
I would suppose it could be possible. I would find that highly unlikely. Someone who's worked on graduation for a long time, that would be a very stable student, unless they had something they didn't. They missed their English credit their senior year and they got senioritis. That's a possibility. There's, kids.
Also, it mirrors with them as they.
Correct, because there's 3 parts to graduation, right? There's the credits. Everyone has to get their 21 credits. Then everyone has to prove competency, and that's either through some sort of testing or technical assessments. And then they also have to earn their seal. So there's 3 legs to a graduation stool, right? So kids have to do all of those. So you could, I suppose, have students that did really well here, and you could see that in our graduation bump. Of our students who needed an extra year to finish school. But it would be, in my opinion, the rare student that might happen to, probably maybe extenuating circumstances where they didn't finish in time.
But that's why it's going to be good for us to have that data.
Yeah.
To see, because I'm thinking if a kid can get industry credentials, but then have no plan or do not, nothing after graduation, or if they make it to graduation. I'm just curious, just off of some conversation I had with some students. So I like to talk from a factual basis, because if I just hear your story, then that becomes my evidence and my fact, because I only have your first-hand account of your experience and how you feel with attaining it. So I would like to get that information just to be a more informed board member when I'm talking to students and families, because it's very perspectives on how they feel about these things. And so I would like to be able to, as their community liaison or advocate, talk to them from a very highly informed point of what students are doing and what we are doing to ensure their success after, that their child could have benefited from. So that's why I'm asking. Thank you.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you for those comments. I have an additional question, because I was a parent when all of this was being developed, and I recall attending a workshop that Rachel Tecca gave, Stop, Start, Sustain, and it was to inform the community on how to stop, start, sustain any of these pathways if need be. So my question is, has that happened at all? Have any of these pathways been tweaked, changed?
We have added a pathway, the criminal justice pathway at Garfield. We have some pathways that we continue in a sustained process, figuring out ways to make sure that they keep the interest in number of students. However, that can be difficult in some schools where you have several pathways and there's only so many kids to go around, right? Our sweet spot in a pathway is 75 to 100. We do have a few schools that have about 50 kids in a pathway. Just over pathwayed a little bit for their population. But we pay attention to that every year. We discuss that when we look through all of our numbers. We're constantly looking at that. So as far as, I think criminal justice is the only one that we've swapped at this point, right? Has there been another one? Cybersecurity at STEM. Thank you. There's another one that was changed. Criminal justice is Garfield, correct. They actually traded the advisory boards, look at that. They ask the students. They go through all the different options. They look at the labor market trends and present those to the students, and then the students vote on which pathway that they wanted to add there, and that's how the criminal justice pathway came to be. This year started over at Garfield.
Thank you.
It's just a comment-sized question, then I'm done with questions. Because I remember years ago that Bookdale High School had criminal justice or something with law. Do you know anything about that? No, some time ago, Bookdale had a criminal. Oh, there you go, 1040. Do you recall what I'm talking about, Mary? Bookdale had a criminal justice. That might have been it. It may have been called criminal justice.
We did rotation.
Okay, yes. And so, because they had horticulture at some point. So these are things that were present in that demographic. And then I believe, and someone can clear me, yes. And so I'm just curious because I know that within that demographic, it's a high concentration of low income, at-risk youth within that area that attend Bookdale. And it would just seem like, not that that's good to have it at Garfield too. I'm just curious as to if students are interested, because I know pathways are, when they get filled, because I remember Dr. Hall had referenced this, and if that's the pathway they really desire, is it possible to split? Like, if one is full, can you have like a rotation to where Bookdale can have that pathway as well? Because I believe Judge David Hamilton has a program also. I know he came and visited students in Bookdale High School this wasn't, there was some program. Let me get the facts on that. I'm just curious as how we can leverage this to maximize student opportunities that may be really engaged in that. In those communities, just as put a pin in that.
Of course, and that goes along with that stop, start, and sustain process. So that's exactly how that would come about. And so we do have to balance that with, like she said, the number of students too in a pathway, and then it's looking at that data, the information about the everything that's out there, right? The careers that are available, those types of things, and then the number of students that may be interested in this particular pathway. But then we also can't put too many pathways within a building, because then you don't have enough students in order to fill that pathway up too. So being fiscally responsible too about the numbers. But through that process that Ms. Teka showed to everybody and Marcy just talked about again, is that's how we look at and evaluate and decide, is this a time to perhaps stop a certain pathway and possibly even look at replacing it with something else. For instance, if the children are not choosing that pathway and we constantly can't fill it. And so we've had a couple, I don't want to say a couple, but I know of one particular instance of that. And that's a hard decision to make. So we don't just make it we make sure we go through the process so that when it is determined that we are either replacing a pathway or closing a pathway, that we've gone through the process before just doing that. So
I would add the labor.
Like the criminal justice does phenomenal at Garfield. Can we keep criminal justice at Garfield, but if there's a need at Bookdale, can we expand instead of creating a new pathway? Could we just build upon and expand an existing one that becomes oversaturated and it's a high interest? Is that, have we considered that?
It's staffing, room placement, labor market needs. It's a lot of factors that come into play. So, and it would if you're looking at pathways, say at Bookdole, and you said there's a pathway that either students haven't expressed an interest in, the labor market sort of changes, it's something you're like, well, do we want to retire this one and replace it with something more in demand that kids might gravitate towards more, that might be about more of benefit to them? There's lots of factors to consider. So that's sort of a start process of starting something new would be looking at what are those long-term labor trends that would be available, because you want them to have a job if they study something that we can't oversaturate. And so that's why we don't have a culinary program at every single high school. Kids would love it at every single high school, but not everybody can go become a chef, right? We can't be graduating everybody with that. So strategically placed where students can still take advantage of it. But I think what you might be asking for is sort of those trans-op where students went from school to school and maybe could take advantage of a different program someplace else. We don't have that right now. We have that they can enroll to the school where the program is at. Correct. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Mm-hmm. All right.
I do have one more question. I know when we went to the December meeting with our community partners and with the Ford NGL partners, I got a sneak peek at this.
Yes.
And one of the conversations that I had with the person next to me from Tennessee is that there's just so much on here to celebrate. And I know we had 1,000 questions, and we're so excited to make it even better for the future. But there's so much on here to celebrate. I mean, the graduation rate alone, moving up 6% as quickly as we did, and things like that. And I know I heard the partners at that meeting say that they agreed there's so much to celebrate. So has there been more conversation, or is there something specific from here, since there are so many different things, that any of our partners have decided to share or highlight?
I think we shared it with the chamber, and that group all had all the members there. We've shared it at a retreat for district leadership, which I believe you attended, and we had wild success because this is an easy, digestible document, and it was meant to be that. It just was something to say, here's just a year at a glance. We know we have a lot of things going on, and sometimes we give these huge presentations and it can feel overwhelming, but it's also just nice to see, like, what are some of the counts and numbers and things as we're trending, because every year we grow, all these numbers move in the right direction, and that can only be of benefit. So I feel like this has been really helpful for people to have a quick, easy way to see what's going on. We asked them at our most recent steering committee, we shared this with them as well, and they wanted to be able to post it up as a proud CCAA partner and partner with Akron Public Schools. They wanted to be able to share the good news via their website and social media, so we shared that with them digitally, so it's getting out there so that they're part of this work too.
Thank you. Any other questions? Thank you so much, and congratulations on all the gains. We should be proud of that.
Thank you.
No worries. Thank you. So now we're going to go into the second topic of today's meeting, and that is the addendum for the starting the elementary CCAA here in Akron.
Thank you. So just to preface a little bit that, we talked about the work that's gone into, this was the original master plan. And in this original high school master plan, there was always the intention to move into middle school and elementary. It was always part of that work, and that we would phase into it. And this was that 5-year first phase out high school piece. And we did, right? So our promise to the community was that we would move into the middle school. So we did this was the middle school addendum that was brought to board 3 years ago. And then that work started rolling out to all the middle schools. And so that is in its halfway points right now in our middle school work. So that grant that we've accepted from Martha Holdings Jennings has supported that rollout and building the systems and structures to make that work. And so what we're looking at now is what are we doing in elementary? So the same process and all the master planning that went into the high school, middle school, and elementary has taken place. So we've lived through this master planning process now 3 times. And we would have had this to you earlier, post-pandemic time, sort of just caused a little bit of a hiccup as far as putting it all together. But we had some really great plans in place. We've been working with the continued work of all of the committees that worked on this plan to finish up this addendum. We're really excited to get this to you today. We'll be bringing it to board for board approval at the end of February, I believe the February 26th meeting. And what that means is that we would be the first pre-K through 12 Ford designated college and career academy district in the country. It's pretty good news, right? And what that really means is that we leverage those systems and structures that help us just transform the way that we're doing things in education. We believe it aligns perfectly with the work that's going on in the strategic blueprint, and that was part of the work we did this fall as we were writing the blueprint, was we double-checked for all that alignment so that it's not reinventing, but it's how are we doing some of those things in the blueprint that this work will help support. So you'll see that alignment was part of the revision work that happened this fall before we brought it to you. So you have a copy of it. It is a draft copy, and so that you can go through it. I'm going to start us off on how we've gotten to this point, and then Mary's going to walk you through the different tactical plans that the teams designed throughout the work. So as we were talking earlier, the high school, college, and career academies, and you have a copy of your pathways and academies inside your folder. Our middle schools that came online, as I just spoke to, and we are hopeful that when we have our Akron and Action events on March 5th, 6th, and 7th this year, that on the final day we're going to announce to the whole country and the whole Ford network that we are officially pre-K through 12. So we're excited about this trajectory, and we think it's actually pretty good timing. So as a reminder, the Ford framework does 3 big things, and it's going to look pretty familiar to what you've been seeing in our strategic planning document, the Blueprint for Excellence, right? How do we transform the way our teaching and learning is delivered in our schools? How are we transforming the cultures and systems of schools and the structures and the ways that students experience school? And how are we transforming the way that we've used partnerships between schools and the community? So the only thing I think that's missing up there is probably that organizational, operational cornerstone. But of course, that's fundamental to all this work. But it aligns really well, the Ford framework that we have been using in existence with our College and Career Academy model to the work that we're doing with our strategic plan. So there were several of those strands. I want to talk to you about those for just a moment. As far as transforming learning, in this particular strand, we're looking at how we're scaffolding professional learning for our teachers, how we're being responsive to the culture in which we teach, how we're developing a system to support higher level thinking through inquiry. We know that our students learn through intentionally designed opportunities that allow them to flourish, the honors to students' customs and characteristics, and the perspectives that they bring as essential tools for better classroom instruction. So that's the foundation. This was written by our staff as they thought about what the story was that we're trying to tell in the way that we're transforming learning. For the student experience, these are those guaranteed grade level experiences. As you look at this plan today, you're going to see lots of things, or you're going to say, but our elementaries are already doing some of these things. Well, we couldn't hold them back. They couldn't wait for us. They started on student voice and leadership opportunities. They started on grade level experiences. They started student ambassador programs. They started working with the elementary portrait of a scholar. All of those things they just sort of jumped into. We're just going to be able to really now make it systemic, and we're refine and deepen some of those practices. But this experience that students have through smaller learning communities, the affirming environment that supports students as they transition to middle school, we want to see them really well prepared with all those skills and assets that are in the Portrait of an Elementary Scholar. There's a copy in your folder too if you want to compare it to the secondary one. But really just building that momentum in elementary to better prepare them for middle school that better prepares them for high school. So all of those pieces are inside of the student experience. And then that third strand, that family, business, and community engagement, it's just a different way in which we're engaging businesses into our schools. So how do these community partnerships collaborate with our staff? How do they work with our leadership? How do they work with our families to create an environment that connects students to relevant and authentic experiences beyond the classroom walls? We will look at establishing a partner engagement governance structure, strategic partnerships aligned to future opportunities. So what's going on in my high school? What do I need to know in elementary school? What's really out there for me where I can have aspirations early? Looking at how our out-of-school time network around the city aligns and supports that, and ownership and accountability through the community of learners and the Akron community. So those three strands are the big ideas of the work we're trying to do in the elementary, again, feeding for middle schools and high schools. So we did have a lot of support throughout this process. We had community conveners. I'm going to read all that to you, but we had, the United Way, the Community Foundation, GAR Foundation, were all instrumental in supporting this transformation work. The steering committee that works on this is the primary oversight, so we meet now 3 times a year. They also met to help write early on, dedicated to this work. But they monitor the overall health of the academies. They provide guidance. Sometimes we have specific questions about what we're trying to implement, and we need the community's input around that. And this group of individuals comes back year after year and has really committed a lot of their time and talent to our students. We have our foundational work around this elementary scholar. This started early on and really kind of drove the writing process that went into this document, because how do you give students a chance to really set those key foundational skills and competencies and that you see later on in the Portrait of a Graduate? This has been a guiding document that our teachers have been using with our families and partners and scholars. They can practice these skills and are encouraged to demonstrate them. I love this. I think a lot about the one about being kind. Like you might look at a student's and some traditional ways that this has shifted. You might have said you're kind or you're not. You have grit or you don't. And you just had it or you didn't. And that was just kind of the way we evaluated students on some of these things. You were a good collaborator or you weren't. And there was never the opportunity to say, have we given the students a chance to practice these competencies in classrooms? Have we provided the systems and structures that they can demonstrate that they know how to do those things? And have we provided them with leadership opportunities to work with their other students? So this has set the foundation and drove a lot of the conversations and the work that went into this. So the schools that will be served, all of the elementary schools and their clusters. And then our 5-year master planning document that you have in your folder, and just the phases that we went through to start this back in 2020, where we set the Portrait of an Elementary Scholar with the design and input from community, family, and students. Looking at the high school portrait, they wanted to keep sort of the same framework around the big titles at the top, but knew that the words needed to be more elementary age friendly, right? And then we had a 110-member master planning committee established that came together and volunteered. They had their first master planning session in 2021, and the driving question that they looked at was, what must college and career academies of Akron elementary schools experience look like, feel like, and sound like? And they spent a whole day in a retreat as a group, in small groups, sharing and really diving into what that might look like. They came up with 9 major ideas, and then we called them tactical plans, and a purpose for each of those. They established membership on those tactical plan committees, and then in those subcommittees established their dates to meet and start drafting what they thought needed to go in each of those 9 topics. The master planning group then came back together in October of that year and shared out what they had been working on and how that would fuel the work, transformation work in the elementary schools under those 3 strands. So they got feedback from that group. They refined, they went back to their subcommittees and refined based on that feedback. We put this out, that's January of 22, all of the plans went out to all elementary staff, and they had a whole morning where they dug into the plans and gave all of the steering committee groups feedback again. And so there was another revision that it went through based on just that general teacher voice. And then we had another review of the tactical plans, major transformation strands alignments in the fall of 2023. And our focused teams and APS strategic plans have been going on all this year, just focusing on getting this work and the alignment of what our current reality was from when we started in 2021. So I want to turn it over to Ms. Otley, and she is going to walk you through the tactical plans that were designed by the group.
Thank you. So one thing I want to say before I begin is when we were looking through developing the tactical plans, we first looked through the lens of what are our transformation challenges, so that the plans that you hear are really challenges that we feel we need to deal with in order for our students to be prepared to move on to the middle school level. And so with that being said, the tactical plan, robust student leadership, that falls under our cornerstone of culture, of safety, and belonging. And this is really all about that challenge of ensuring all of our scholars see themselves as leaders. There's an equity issue with that. Sometimes all of our scholars do not feel like they're given the opportunity to show their leadership qualities. And so we want to make sure that we have a framework in place that will ensure that all of our pre-K, starting in pre-K through 5th grade, scholars have that opportunity to participate in leadership development and having that sense of ownership of their own learning, having their voice, as I heard Marcy say earlier, and being able to know that they're empowered to take action. And so we already have started some of that work, even with our portrait of our student, our scholar. Can we take that out just for a second? Mm-hmm. I'm not going to dwell on this right now, but I do just want to show one area in particular. At the time that we also had our partners in, we were going through some community unrest. And so when we talked about contributing to society, again, we wanted our students to feel like they could be advocates, that they could have a voice, and that they can make a difference, and that they are a difference. And so we actually said, what would that look like, again, under student leadership? So I can take action to help in my home. So that's saying you have the power as a leader to take action at the home. Also at your school, we see you as being a leader, and then throughout the community, and then finding opportunities in our work to actually give them those different kinds of experiences. And so also the framework includes giving them opportunities in the classroom, and that could be as simple as having classroom leaders taking on various jobs. At the elementary level, we've started our student ambassador program where each of our schools have ambassadors. Normally when you come in, they will give you a tour of the building, greet you, tell you about their school, and really they do an excellent job. They've been through a training. We'd like to thank Ms. Winter. She oversees that to help ensure that, again, we're giving them some soft skills that they can be able to talk to adults in a room, which is challenging for all of us, right? And they're learning it at the pre-K through fifth grade level. Also, we are trying to develop student councils at each of our school. Again, teaching our students about student government at an early level and the role that they can play. Our professional development is around creating, again, buy-in with our staff. Also, how do they take a robust leadership within their individual classrooms in completing this framework that we're currently working on as a district? And then how do we communicate this to our students, our families, and our business partners, and giving our partners a chance to engage with us? I believe Beth had mentioned something earlier about the shake. The amazing shake, and that's one of the tasks that we're looking at developing, again, teaching our students how to interact on a professional level, on a leadership level within the community. So I'm going to stop there and just see, are there any questions around building student leadership within our scholars at the elementary level? Yes.
Thank you, Ms. Ali. As you know, because I've seen you when I've been out at some schools, Glover, and in the previous years. Ms. Winters, is it? Winter. Phenomenal job. Whatever you're doing with these ambassadors. And so I know that this framework, this groundwork has been laid solidly. So when we talk about building upon it, I'm just thinking right now, what's the action steps for what's next? Like in real time. The only reason I'm asking that because I've been to Mickey Bright, Flores, Glover, Reimer, and each time met by ambassadors, very informative of their schools, very polished. Helen Arnold, CLC. Just when I tell you the level in which these kids know about the incentive programs for positive behavior incentives, be kind, and they inform me as I'm walking through, very knowledgeable young people, very polished, because what you feed is what will grow. So it's clear that this foundation, Ms. Otley, as you talked about as far as cultivating our students into leaders at the elementary level, that exists. That I can say firmly, and I'll stand on that this district and all those work has done a phenomenal job with that. So now, when something this solid, what is the next step that now is being officially brought out? Because it's not new. I've seen this with my own eyes consistently, because you all know every Wednesday I was at a school going, and so it was not, this is real. The training has happened. You know, some things I question when we say what we're doing because I don't see the evidence. With this leadership, with the youth, I've seen the evidence, I've seen the manifestation of your works. So now, how do we then take this to the next, what is the next level? Because the ambassadors, they exist. They're engaged. They know about their schools. They can present well. I've even seen in some cases, I don't know if this has been throughout the district, but where teachers and principals have pulled me to the side and said, you know, this kid was like a little, so we put him in this role, which speaks to, I think, Marcy, you talked to, or and Mary, about students who, the equity of it, where they allow them to repurpose their leadership skills from not being a distraction to learning, but adding value to the environment. So I'm going to stop there because I'm just curious, when you've done something this well already, and now it's being rolled out like it's a new, It has to be a
But it's
higher.
in the works.
My expectation is okay. What's the higher level? Because I know for a fact you've done this, and you guys has done a phenomenal
I think
job
if you
with
look at the plan, you're going to see that there's other things in the leadership opportunities for students that are there and you think leadership for all, right? True. So the ambassador programs are a fantastic example, and we can rotate. But how do you make sure every single student before they leave elementary has had a chance for robust leadership opportunity? And that's a challenge, right? That's 10,000 students. So how are you going to make sure that they've all had that? So there's that work is there for sure to be accountable that every student has had that opportunity in some sense.
For clarity, because I was with the ambassador, I thought that they do cycle. Okay, thank you. So that clears that up. So okay, thank you.
They can apply annually.
So okay, great. So that part I did not know.
Right.
Okay, great. So
And
that
students
makes
may
sense.
show, some students might not want to be an ambassador. They don't want that level of leadership. They want a different level of leadership. So how can we look at opportunities that give every student that type of leadership opportunity that fits their interests that they can grow into, right?
I'm excited to see
I'm
what you guys do
excited.
because since I first came here, I said it can go younger. It can go younger.
Yes.
College, it can go younger because I've seen and I know it. So I'm excited to see that we are implementing these things younger, and because of how well things I've seen happen in this district with these things, I'm just so excited that I'm here at such a time as this to see this happen, because I think these are the impacts that we'll see in our community when we talk about how does this then matriculate to a greater Akron.
Right.
Right.
Yeah, so
Can only
thank you
help.
guys.
Can we help?
I think it's just key that we personalize it off so our students really take it in and believe we're talking about them. And so Leader in Me is one of the programs also that can elevate it to another level. Currently, we have 3 schools, Cyberling, Krause, and Hatton, that are, again, this is a training to teach their scholars and their staff around different elements of leadership and how to individually take it to another level and to be a whole school. And they're called beacons, and they can be recognized also by the state. And so right now, that is something each of those schools are striving to attain, is that next level of elevation, of recognition of being a Leader in Me school. Also, all of our counselors do work with our scholars on something called Character Strong. Again, it's about going into the classroom, doing some model lessons with them to support them in their leadership development. And we'll continue to look for additional ways through our plan. So now our next challenge is Tactic 2, and that is rich social skill development, and that's under our cornerstone, again, of culture, safety, and belonging. And again, this work is around demonstrating our SEL, our social and emotional learning. So we really want to make sure that we're helping our students with behavior modification. So leadership and behavior modification, they go together. We want our scholars to be able to self-regulate, to have some tools in their toolkit for when things are not. I was at a school, and one of the students greeted me. I said, "Hey, what are you working on?" But first he wanted to tell me where he was in his emotions. He said, "Right now, I'm yellow." And I said, "What's wrong?" He said, "I was tardy to school today." And that threw him off. So just acknowledging that, hey, I'm not 100% right now, but yet I'm here and I know you want me to learn. That's helping our scholars be able to identify their emotions, learn how to deal with them in a positive manner so that they are more open to learning. And so that's some of the work we're doing. Also, it goes along with our MTSS model that the district will be rolling out. Again, having class meetings. This gives our scholars an opportunity to become a community within the classroom and to also address issues that may be brewing within the classroom that we do not want to become negative. Is teaching our scholars social development. I do not fight first. I try to communicate first, figure it out. So these are skills that they have to learn, because social media is not teaching that. They're teaching them to react without thinking of consequences, and our model is just the opposite. Okay, so some of this work is also teaching them to overcome their traumas and barriers. We're working with our staff with professional development to help them with redirecting students' behavior, and again, to empower them and to teach our students how to self-regulate. And all of that, again, is through our social and emotional learning tactic. Are there any questions just about social emotional learning? Yes, ma'am.
I'm trying to think. I think you may have addressed it, but I wasn't clear. So are they going to be doing, having programs or business that deals with building up their emotional intelligence?
Yes.
Because everything that you were describing, I'm like, this is a key indicator for strong emotional intelligence. So I think, okay.
Yes, ma'am. So the teachers will get professional development first so that they can incorporate it within their classrooms.
How are we evaluating if the teachers are, is that, what's the what is the evaluation for the implementation of these things that the teachers are getting trained on?
We would probably say we know we're being successful when we see discipline decrease, referrals to the office decrease, students again being able to self-regulate, to talk themselves down when they're angry, and to find better ways to resolve their issues would be probably our best data to say that is really starting to take hold at the elementary level, because we see those statistics go down. Mm-hmm. We're also coming up with something with the support of Dr. Lash is our reset rooms. And again, that's with the support of an adult. A student can go there for some time out and then be able to go through some activities with a person, again, to help them self-regulate and return to the classroom versus out-of-school suspensions. As always, and it could be an option, but this is our first step, is to go to a reset room to reset their behaviors. I'm sorry. Yeah, please do.
I was just going to add one more item. We have the Character Strong program, and so we just this is hot off the press, I think within the last week, out of Yvonne Culver's office, we'll be able to track the lessons that were accessed through the program in those classrooms that are utilizing it. So that is the curriculum that we would per se be using for the social emotional learning. Mm-hmm. So I just wanted to add that part too.
No, thank you. And also our PBIS falls under this work as well, where we want all of our schools to strive to become first a bronze level a school of bronze level distinction, and that means that they're working at a tier 1. They have things in place, again, to help with this social emotional learning. And I believe at elementary, all but maybe, I don't want to exaggerate, maybe out of our 27 schools, all but 3 may have earned that distinction for this year. So so that's another indicator that we're moving in the right direction.
I think I know in the Garfield cluster, I know they had some silver.
Right, and we have 3 schools that are silver. Yes, Voris is silver, Schumacher, our ILP in Hatton. We have 4. I said 3. 4.
Okay, I just want to about the Character Strong very quickly. So you'll be able to access, if I'm understanding what you said, if I'm teacher Ms. Jackson and I've went through certain modules and received the training, then you'll be able to know within my classroom what I, the teacher, have been exposed to. So you'll be able to look you'll be able to pinpoint it to Ms. Sykes, Ms. Molnar's class, that if we took these training, that if Ms. Jackson had 25% increase in year 2023 of office referral, that after this training that my referrals decreased by such and such percent based off of my training. Is that what you're saying you'll be able to look to see?
So that document that I'm talking about, or the process I'm talking about, is just about the actual curriculum, the lessons and things like that. So in terms of, it's like having an electronic textbook, saying that did I actually open up and complete, did I use it? But to your point, I think Mrs. Outley had already described that we can also kind of look at the discipline data to see what's happening
No,
to
I understand
two different
that.
systems, though.
Let me just for brevity say this, because we have people come in and they talk about the disparities of expulsion and suspension rates with our students, male, African, so we know this, right? And so I was explaining to someone that if I am a Caucasian teacher and I'm working at a school and 98% of that school is people of color, black and brown or of color, then it doesn't matter how many referrals that I write, it's going to appear that I have a high level of referrals that I send out to African American or children of color. If you're just looking strictly at office referrals, I'm a Caucasian teacher and I send this because we've had people come to the board and make these assertions. However, that does not mean that if there's not some microaggressions, some implicit biases, and some things with certain teachers that we can identify, which is why that was my question I asked. Meaning, if we know that this teacher X, often, even though I know contractually or something, you can't see necessarily that teacher, but the building principal can, that if teacher X is the one sending all these referrals that are resulting in a high percentage of African American males, I'll just use that for example, or children of color, being sent to an alternative school or referred for expulsion, that with putting strategies like this in place, if you're teaching for this curriculum, that we should see a shift in that. And if not, if I'm seeing a shift in Otley's class, in Marcy's class, but not in Jackson's class, will be able to be an indicator about Jackson. And that's why I'm kind of wondering, we can table that to, I'm wondering like how these tools, is it going to be that useful to where we can now start pinpointing and dealing with real systemic things that are being problematic in our schools.
Okay. Yeah, again, I think that I get your point, but we're talking about the thing that I reference is not going to do that. It's just the curriculum. Yeah. Okay.
I had a curriculum clarification question. Is the curriculum for the teachers and staff, or is the curriculum for the students?
It's for the students.
So you're seeing if the teacher is assigning these lessons for the students, and you're seeing the
Or teaching the
completion
lessons.
rate of the students doing this work. And so theoretically then, the behavior in my class should improve because my students have learned these skills.
So that's the idea of what we hope to do when we bring social emotional learning to the classroom, for sure, and improving those social skills and things like that of the scholars. So so we're excited about it. I can't give you any more details than that because it's so new. I haven't even seen results and what type of reports will be in there, but it is just based on like the lessons and things that you can look up and implement within the classrooms.
And so the thing, Mona, to your point, is going to be the follow-up, because all curriculum is for students. History, science, it's all for students. How the teacher effectively, that's where pedagogy comes in, how the teacher effectively disseminates that information is what makes a difference. So, I think it's great, and I'm excited to see. I just want actions. We should see outcomes. That's all. We have great curriculum. We should see something different. But thank you so much, you guys. Excellent information.
Ms. Outley?
Okay, so I'm going to go on to our chat transformation challenge. I'm going to go a little quicker.
We got 6 more.
I could talk to you all day. You have to cut me off. So family engagement. We all around the table know how important family engagement is, and that falls under our cornerstone of partnerships, family, and community engagement. And so we have, again, like Marcy said earlier, been doing some work around enhancing our family engagement through the administration of surveys to get feedback from our families and also from our scholars. And also we're looking at adopting a two-way communication platform where we're not just communicating out to families, but they have an opportunity to communicate back to us. And we're also looking to develop and provide a district direct primary mode of communication with all of our families. Something else that we would like to see happen through our plan is to recruit and train our parents to become ambassadors, because we know that parents can talk to other parents and can be that support that they need. So that's some of the work that we're looking for. Also in this tactic is the work we're doing with our United Way Family Resource Centers. Currently, we have resource centers in 5 of our clusters, and they're open to all of the families within the cluster to provide additional wraparound supports. Are there any questions around family engagement?
No, out of school
Out
time.
of school time. Okay. If not, we're going to move on to our out of school time. This is another one that's very exciting, where our community partners are coming together to align their own visions and goals and their resources with that of APS, so that we're all on one page. And this supports our cornerstone of partnership, family, and community engagement. So with this work, we're looking to construct a pre-K to 5 program for beyond the school day that supports our career competencies and early exposure to our high school pathways. And we're also looking for programming that will be fully functional in our APS with online registration. We do online registration with our summer school programming. It was a little challenging last year, but with Marcy's support, it has been enhanced for this summer. And again, it's just a way to get our families engaged with what's available for our summer school. So it's how do we involve our partners beyond the school day and also during the summer that would allow us to have an extended school year. Okay, I'm going to move on to our next one. I'm sorry.
You want to ask?
Yeah.
Or she wants to see if she wants us to table and come back.
Sorry, I just want to interject for a minute. So I know that we're over time already by 20 minutes. And so I just wanted to kind of ask the board, we have several slides, but we maybe could go over 2 more slides and then stop if you guys want us to stop halfway through the presentation and then bring it back to the next policy meeting to continue the rest of this, or we can just continue on.
And so I know I started off chairing. Vice President Jackson, you're actually the chair.
chair.
So, no, you're fine. If you want to continue.
I'm fine with us tabling it because we all can have a copy of the PowerPoint to look over it to follow up with any questions that we have. And so for the sake to be respectful of others' time, I'm fine with us just going through which if you think it's something that is urgent, we need to hear now. But as long as we all have a copy of the PowerPoint, we can look through it, and then board member, colleagues, you all can feel free to follow up with Cavers, Otley, or Marcy with any questions that you may see.
Okay. Ms. Allen, just so I'm clear, you went over out of school time,
Correct.
right? Okay. Sorry, I was
Could we just maybe just
the next 2
just
slides.
briefly just say what the rest of the plans are, then you can read at your leisure, and if you would like us to come back and answer any questions that come up prior to the board meeting, we could do that, if that would work. So,
Because for the, in case it's community questions.
right. So the other plans are the career, can you hear me? Career exploration and exposure. So being really meaningful with a continuum throughout elementary around how we're doing that. We also did a plan around how we're going to engage our elementaries with our community partnerships in a different way than we have in the past. So there's a lot of work here. It's really exciting work that we're thinking through. So as you read through the plan, I think you'll see some great ideas that they came up with. Of course, we already have our guaranteed experiences that are going. This is the 6th year of these. So these have been refined and refined every single year to align with that career exposure and all of those pieces. And with GAR's support, hopefully we'll be able to continue those. But those are already in place, so to build on what's happening with those and that model that's been set up in other partner engagement pieces for our elementary age students. There was also a tactical plan around early learning and preschool transformation, which of course we're hearing a lot about right now, right? The high quality access to preschool learning opportunities. And then the final tactical plan, is this number 9, was the foster the portrait of a scholar skills. So that gets back to, we know we had the portrait. How are we making sure that when students leave elementary school that they've had all the opportunities to practice and demonstrate these skills to be ready for middle school? That's what this work is about, so that they're a better prepared secondary student, because that portrait of a graduate starts at 6th grade, right? So those were the rest. Sorry.
our last one.
I thought I was forgetting one. This is an important one. Inquiry-based instructional shift. So that idea that we want students leaving elementary schools being really great wanderers and questioners of their environments and being able to problem solve, design, think, and because we know all the work we're doing around student voice and agency in middle school is all of that action taking. So if they need to come into middle school really having a good inquisitive set about them, so that when they get there, they're able to really start diving into, okay, I know how to ask questions. How do I start solving and taking action on those questions? So that piece is in there. And we believe that if we do, implement the tactical plans to transform what the traditional elementary school experience has been, or continue the transformation that they've already laid out, monitor those outcomes, that our elementary scholars will become middle school scholars ready with assets for academic and aspirational success. So that's our overall outcome that we're aiming for in all of this work. So our foundations have been, as we've just talked about, a lot of those items that have already started, and what our next steps are. Initially, when these plans were designed, there were a lot of dates tied to them, and we want to go really get that year one implementation, because you can't, there's so much good meaty stuff in here, but you can't throw it all out there at once. You have to be strategic around what are you starting with, year 1, year 2, so then year 5, we can say we've done all this well. So that will be our next steps. Looking at those expectations in the portrait, is it threading through everything we're doing with students? Marketing plan needs to get in place, wrap it all into the rest of the college and career academy sort of suites, and the communication pieces of that, our resources, partner engagement, and the continued inquiry development are our next level.
I think something that Ms. Jackson said should also help us move forward with the work, and that's keeping the key performance indicators in place. So as we do the work, how do we know we're being successful at it? Because the work is good, and then that'll just give us something to celebrate when we're here at the board with you.
Yes.
Thank you, team. So, Ms. Jackson, just so I'm clear, so we will post the presentation at this time, so you'll have access to it. But our next instructional policy meeting is February 5th, so I just want to make sure I know the expectation. Is the expectation that you would like the team to come back and present the other 8 slides to the committee? Ms. Outley was doing a great job breaking it down for us. Or is it okay, or are we okay to proceed where you...
Thank you for getting clarification. I think that we'll all be able to look over those 8 slides personally, and that when we come to the next meeting in February, it should be new business.
Okay.
And we can, if we have questions, if a member of the board, has questions based off what we've covered in those additional slides, then they'll follow up with you all. I just ask board colleagues that you CC me on that, so that when I report out at our board meeting, for community members that are watching, then we can inform them of any additional information that was discussed and questions and the answers that we had to that.
Okay.
Yeah, but yes, just,
So if you have
make sure we all
questions,
have
you would
access to it.
email them to me.
And CC me on it, just so that I'm
Okay.
aware of the questions. So when I report out for instructional policy at our board meeting, I can address those,
Awesome.
highlight them or whatever.
All right, so we'll move on to new business.
Sure. Dr. Molnar, she has a quick question, so.
Hopefully, this will be a quick question. So just for clarification, since not only have we never done this before, but no one has ever done this before, our high schools, each building has a specific pathway. So students have a different experience based upon what building they're in. Are we anticipating in the elementaries for the students to have different experiences based upon the building they're in, or are all of these happening to all of the students? And then in addition to that also, how does this affect the IB schools, the students who are, or the buildings that are currently IB schools? And then the third question would be, how would this be affected by the current conversations around redistricting?
Yeah.
With it.
Yeah,
Thank you for that, Dr. Molnar. And I would say if you could just follow up with that, because you just threw a lot of questions at them, and so they probably didn't get to write those down. If you can email them those, because those are great questions, and if you guys can follow up with the email response, that would be
And
excellent.
it would be really helpful as we will present to board at the end of February too in a more abbreviated version. So if there's questions or things that we need to field or your input at this point that we can make sure that those are addressed ahead of time, that would be great.
Yeah, thank you.
As we close out, I just want to remind you that we have updates in the agenda as well that you all, as always, can go ahead and look at those. There's one for CCAA, an update on the Family Resource Center, and as always, an update on our Stay in the Game attendance initiative with the Cleveland Browns. Please note that the FRC was supposed to open at higher official ribbon cutting, and that will be postponed due to the inclement weather. It's open, but the official ribbon cutting the ceremony will be postponed. All right. Thank you so much. Thank you for your time today.
Excellent job, as always. Thank you so much, ladies.
Thank you.